Rain fell softly against the window, blurring the view of the world outside. Doctor stood in his dimly lit office, the scent of antiseptic mingling with an unshakable grief. Each drip echoed the emptiness in his heart, a reminder of laughter lost too soon. He glanced at the worn file on his desk, the photograph of a girl with hair like spun gold and eyes that held storms, a stark contrast to the bleakness around him. Lily had come from the fever house, a place shadowed by whispers of despair. He had bought her, believing he could heal a broken spirit, yet he hadn't realized the depths of her past. As he studied her delicate features, a flicker of recognition ignited within him, an unsettling warmth wrapping around his heart. A connection, unexplainable yet undeniable, pulled him closer. In that moment, secrets unfolded, intertwining their fates in ways neither could fathom. Heat danced in the air, thick and oppressive, as a solitary figure moved through the fever house. The walls dripped with sweat, their peeling paint reflecting the awfulness within. Lily clutched her arms around her knees, hidden in the farthest corner of a dismal room where the light struggled to reach. The stench of disinfectant mingled with decay, and the cries of the sick echoed like ghosts weaving through the dim hallways. She had been here long enough to learn the bitter truth. A girl like her became a commodity, and she could feel that truth pooling around her, fated to drown her. The auction was a somber affair, solemn faces peering through the gloom, yet exuberance flickered in the air. They were here for the broken, the unwanted, and Lily was both. At 6, she was still unaware of the gravity of her abandonment, her innocence a fragile shell around her heart. She peeked through her tangled curls, her hazel eyes wide with a shimmery, desperate hope that someone would save her, yet knowing all too well that salvation rarely came for girls like her. The noise swelled, hushed murmurs mixed with the occasional cough, and she felt the weight of their gazes, all assessing, all willing to bid for her fate. When he entered, there was an aura of stillness that followed. The man moved with the practiced precision of a physician, his coat trailing slightly behind him as he walked. Doctor stepped into the dim light, and for a moment, time seemed to scatter. He scanned the room, a glimmer of something tragic clouded in his eyes. Lily could see the remnants of sorrow etched on his features, a deep well of grief layered beneath his skin. His heart had lost its rhythm, silent yet tumultuously beating beneath the surface. It was the way of the bereaved, she thought, slightly fascinated. Their eyes met across the room, and in that instant, the world around them faded. Lily felt an inexplicable pull, the way gravity has an unseen hand. His gaze was not one of assessment. It pierced through her discomfort and fear, reaching out like a lifeline. She saw a flicker of recognition, as if he had glimpsed a part of himself in her. Perhaps he had felt the sting of loss as she did, a feeling that turned every whisper of hope into a ghost. Yet the moment was fleeting, crushed by the looming reality of her situation, as she was drawn further into the depths of despair. $5, he said, his voice steady as he raised his hand. There was a collective rustle, the murmur of surprise sweeping through the crowd. The warmth of that moment between them dissipated like fog in the morning sun, replaced by cold indifference. Lily could hardly understand the concept of value assigned to her life, her worth reduced to a number, a mere currency. As the bidding continued, she felt a sharp pang of yearning for something she could not name, the loss of a dream she had yet to even realize. When the final gavel struck, a hush fell over the crowd as the sale was finalized. Doctor stepped forward, extending a hand toward Lily, a mix of kindness and awkwardness in his gesture. She hesitated, uncertain of whether the touch would be freeing or another chain. The transaction was swift, devoid of sentiment, and yet the heat of his palm against her delicate skin ignited a flicker of connection deep within her. In that fleeting moment, fear and uncertainty jostled within her. He was not the monster she had braced herself for. With each step away from that fever house, her heart thudded painfully against her ribs. The world outside was bright and too expansive, filled with possibilities that felt out of reach. Doctor's presence was warm yet distant, an unintentional reminder of the love he had lost. He moved like a man carrying the weight of a heavy heart. She longed to bridge the chasm, to feel comfort in his sorrow, yet found only a vast expanse of quiet. It was a stark realization that they were both survivors, yet the scars they bore were carved from different stories. Later, as they rode in silence, a cloud of unspoken understanding hung between them. The roaring engines of life and the muffled sounds of the world outside blurred into a cacophony that drowned out their thoughts. Doctor's eyes remained fixed on the road, a mask of concentration barely concealing the turmoil beneath. Lily observed him carefully, hoping to decipher the language of grief that flowed through him. Yet she remained untouched, like a ghost adrift between realms. She felt his distance, like a shadow cast over her, a reminder that she was not yet truly found. In the days that followed, Doctor tried to piece together the fragments of their lives. He was a man of science, accustomed to solving puzzles, yet Lily remained an enigma. She was a girl flickering between the edges of his existence, held firmly in his care, yet never fully within his reach. The emotional chasm between them widened, filled with unuttered words and haunting memories. They shared space, yet remained bystanders in each other's lives, gazing from a distance at the bittersweet reality of their intertwining fates. The sun dipped low behind the sprawling oaks as Lily stepped from the car, her heart thundering in her chest. The house loomed ahead, an old Victorian with faded blue shutters, and a porch that sagged like the weight of the world rested upon it. She took a breath, feeling the air cling to her like a damp shroud. The stories she had heard of this place, whispered in the fever house, hung heavy in her mind. But there was no turning back now. Doctor stood in the doorway, hands tucked deep into the pockets of his worn-out coat, the shadows of evening casting long fingers across his face. He appeared like a statue carved from solitude, reluctant to move, yet barely perceptible was the flicker of curiosity in his eyes. As Lily approached, she felt as if she were walking into a painting of stillness. Every sound was muted, every movement deliberate. The weight of their shared silence created a chasm between them, filled only with the unspoken questions and fears lingering just beneath the surface. "Welcome," he finally said, his voice low but rich with an undercurrent of warmth that momentarily disarmed her. It was an invitation, yet it felt more like a cautious acknowledgement of their fragile accord. Lily nodded, searching his face for reassurance, but all she found was the flicker of something deeper, something unsaid, a shared understanding of loss. She stepped inside, the scent of old wood and faint spices enveloping her like an embrace and grounding her in this new reality. The interior was a jumble of remnants, a doctor's haven fused with echoes of a life once lived. Stacks of medical journals lay scattered across the coffee table. Abandoned, half-finished sketches adorned the walls, and a piano sat untouched in the corner, its keys yellowed with age. Each item told a story, yet the silence screamed of grief. It was a home steeped in ghostly memories that lingered with every breath. As she walked through the threshold, Lily wondered how much of this was merely a facade, a place holding remnants of a love lost too soon. He gestured toward the living room. "You can make yourself at home," Doctor said, his eyes trailing after her as she wandered deeper into the space. She paused before the fireplace, a hearth that had long since lost its warmth, and she could feel the chill of the air around her. His gaze was heavy upon her, watching with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension, as if observing a delicate creature that might flee at any moment. They were two souls marooned in a vast ocean of heartache, and there was no map to navigate the waters between them. Settling into an armchair that roared with the memories of countless conversations, she felt the weight of his unyielding presence. Doctor stood just outside the vastness of her momentary sanctuary, a sentinel bearing the remnants of his own past. Lily glanced up to find him still observing, the line of concern etched across his forehead. It unnerved her, this scrutiny, as if he was trying to excavate the remnants of her scars. She forced a smile, but the corners of her lips trembled, and she turned her gaze toward the window, where the last rays of sunlight battled against the encroaching dusk. "So," Doctor ventured, breaking the spell of silence, his voice tentative, "how are you feeling?" The question hung in the air, a clinical inquiry that lingered uncomfortably between them. She swallowed hard, the words catching in her throat. Here, in this house filled with echoes of sorrow, the standard pleasantries felt hollow, a mere charade in the face of their shared mourning. But beneath it, she sensed a vulnerability within him, a glimmer of the man he still wished to be, even after all he had lost. "I'm trying," she finally replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Just trying to make sense of it all." Udum, their eyes met for a moment, an uncharted territory of sympathy, yet the connection was fleeting. In a world where time had become a harsh mistress for both of them, the questions of who they were and what they needed remained unanswered. Silence reclaimed its throne, folding its heavy wings around them as Lily succumbed to the realization that they were bound by more than just their respective burdens. They were tethered by the threads of an unseen fate. As night settled in, the stars began to twinkle against the velvet dark, and the quietude of the house enveloped them like a cocoon. There, in the shadows cast by the flickering lamp, they stood, two lost souls seeking solace in the wreckage of their lives. The air was thick with untold stories, and with each tick of the clock, Lily felt the fragile strands of their existence intertwining, guiding her unwittingly toward a truth that waited just beyond the horizon of their intertwined destinies. Lily awoke each morning to the soft yet unrelenting chime of the clock on the wall, its hands a constant reminder of the passing hours. The air in the small room was always cool, a stark contrast to the vivid memories of her past. The window, barely larger than a handspan, filtered in slivers of sunlight that danced across the peeling wallpaper. She shuffled to the small mirror, her reflection both a stranger and a haunting echo of who she'd once been. A light touch of her fingers traced the scars that marred her skin, remnants of the fever house that had once held her captive. Those memories still twisted her stomach in knots, but she buried them deep, focusing instead on the rhythm of her new life under Doctor's roof. Doctor moved through the world with a measured calm, a routine etched into the fabric of his being. Mornings found him at his desk, stacks of patient files paralleling the larger stacks of grief he carried within. He often glanced at the closed door to Lily's room, wondering what was behind those faded walls. On his daily rounds, he engaged warmly with patients, all too aware of the fragility of life. Yet, in the quiet moments, when the laughter faded and the medical jargon softened, thoughts of Lily filled the silence. He was drawn to her resilience, the way her laughter flickered like a candle's flame, fragile yet fiercely alive. As days folded into weeks, their paths intertwined in unexpected ways. They shared brief glances during meals, stolen moments where the weight of unspoken words lingered in the air between them. Doctor found himself noticing the small things, like how she often absent-mindedly traced the scars on her forearms, or the way she darted her eyes away whenever laughter erupted from the kitchen. He saw her fragility, an unyielding force masked by stubborn bravery, and found his heart wrestling between admiration and sorrow. Each shared moment tugged at him, a silent plea for connection that he was both eager and terrified to explore. Conversations gradually blossomed, each word a hesitant step toward intimacy. Lily spoke of mundane things, her fondness for wildflowers, the comforting weight of a well-loved book, the familiar taste of cinnamon rolling through her childhood. Each detail was a thread, weaving her back into a tapestry of life. Doctor listened, captivated, yet haunted by the shadows lurking just beneath the surface of those shared stories. He felt an urgency growing, an inexplicable pull towards her past. There lay a mystery he couldn't shake, a connection urging him to uncover the intricate ties that bound them both. The moments of companionship turned into a delicate dance as they both fumbled through their emotions. Doctor found solace in their shared silences, but they were often burdened by an unspoken tension, the growing awareness that their lives had collided by more than mere chance. One evening, as they lingered over dinner, the weight of Lily's silence became tangible. Doctor felt the heat of his heart intensify, longing to ask the questions that simmered just beneath his thoughts. But he hesitated, fearing the frail foundation of their connection could shatter at the slightest inquiry. Lily sensed his curiosity like a crackling fire in the air, a warmth that both comforted and terrified her. Each time she caught the longing in Doctor's gaze, an ache thrummed through her, resonating with the ghosts inside her. She wanted to reveal her scars, to strip away the layers of pain and allow him to see the depths of her soul. But how could she when trust felt so fragile? Instead, she buried her fears beneath smiles that often felt forced, masking the storm that churned inside her. The more time they spent together, the clearer it became to Doctor that something deeper connected them. It wasn't until Lily mentioned a faint memory, a family heirloom she'd lost in the chaos of her childhood, that his heart dropped. The name she spoke resonated within him, echoing through his own fragmented history. The pieces clicked together in a disorienting whirl. The realization that something far more profound was at play began to take shape. He felt a gnawing urgency to explore further, to delve into the intricacies of each other's pasts, yet hesitated, fearing the truth might reveal more than he bargained for. The air between them thickened with an unspoken tension, a yearning for understanding tangled with fear. Doctor's nights were filled with sleepless contemplation, wondering how he could bridge the chasm separating them. Each time he glanced at Lily, he saw fragments of hope mingled with shadows of despair. As he turned over the pages of his family history with newfound fervor, he couldn't shake the thought that they were more than mere strangers, entwined by fate. They were threads woven from the same fabric of loss, pain, and an inexplicable pull towards each other. The morning light filtered softly through the worn curtains of Doctor's modest home, casting golden patterns on the walls adorned with medical degrees and faded photographs. Lily, still adjusting to her new world, shuffled between the clutter of books and the scent of antiseptic lingering in the air. The remnants of her former life felt distant, yet the raw edges of her memories haunted her. She tried to focus on the task at hand, gathering the scattered papers Doctor had left on the desk, but her fingers trembled slightly, the weight of her past intertwined with the present. "Here, let me help," Doctor said gently, his voice a balm against her fidgeting. He stepped closer, reaching for the stack of papers she had been struggling with. In that moment, their hands brushed, and a fleeting connection sparked between them, a shared understanding of vulnerability that lingered like an unspoken promise. Doctor's eyes searched Lily's, seeking a glimpse of the girl hidden beneath the layers of burn scars and emotional walls. But in that intimate moment, any chance for an honest exchange slipped away, leaving only a dissonance in the air. Lily pulled back, startled, her heart racing with memories that erupted like fireworks in her mind. An image of the fever house flickered, a cacophony of pain and desperation, people trapped in the throes of illness while she stood helpless in the shadows. Doctor was nothing like the faces she had known in that hellish place. He was kind and gentle, yet a stirring unease crept into her chest. What if he found out about her history? What if he turned away, disgusted by the remnants of her past? The weight of her fears coalesced into an icy lump in her throat, threatening to choke her. Dinner that evening was a quiet affair. They sat across from each other at the small wooden table, the clinking of silverware punctuating the heavy silence. Doctor watched as Lily picked at her food, her gaze distant, lost in thoughts that seemed to drift far beyond the confines of their shared space. A part of him longed to reach out, to draw her into conversation, but he felt a barrier between them, invisible yet palpable, as though the ghosts of her past were still mingling in the air. "Is everything okay?" Doctor finally ventured, leaning forward, concern etched across his features. His question hung there, thick with the unspoken worries that had gathered between them. Lily met his eyes, their depths offering a reflection of her own turmoil, but the chasm between them felt insurmountable. She hesitated, the truth weighing heavily on her tongue, like stones in a pocket, threatening to sink her under the surface of their fragile bond. "I'm fine," she replied, the words slipping out more like a reflex than a revelation. She longed to tell him about the nights spent trembling in fear, the scars that told stories of loss and despair, but fear clawed at her throat, stealing the courage she needed to lay bare her soul. Doctor's disappointment flickered in his eyes, a flicker she caught just in time, as she diverted her gaze, focusing on the quirks of the wood grain on the table instead. "Well, if you need anything, I'm here," Doctor offered softly, his voice a gentle invitation wrapped in sincerity. It felt like an anchor in a storm, but Lily remained adrift, unable to grasp the lifeline he extended. She nodded, feeling the heat of tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. How could she explain that being here, in this moment of safety, was a new kind of fear? The realization that she might not be alone, that someone cared, felt both exhilarating and terrifying. As the evening wore on, Lily slipped into the quietude of her thoughts. Her mind wandered back to the family tree Doctor had shown her, vibrant branches reaching toward the sky, each leaf whispering secrets. What if she were indeed a part of that lineage, intertwined through generations? The thought stirred something deep within her, a glimmer of hope amid the shadows. Yet the more she pondered, the more she felt the fear of revelation return. Could she truly belong, or were her scars too deep to ever be accepted? "Do you believe in second chances?" Doctor suddenly asked, breaking the silence that had settled like a heavy mist. The question hung in the air, resonating with the weight of their shared vulnerabilities. Lily's heart skipped a beat, the unguarded sincerity in his tone, cutting through the walls she had meticulously erected. She looked up, finding him watching her with an intensity that made her breath catch. In that moment, the possibility of connection flickered like a candle in the dark, illuminating the path forward, fraught with uncertainty, yet full of potential. The rain fell in a soft, melancholy rhythm against the windows of the old house, creating a symphony of droplets that echoed through the empty halls. Doctor stood in the dim light of the study, his eyes lingering on the silhouette of Lily as she sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by boxes of forgotten memories. With each flicker of light from the fireplace, shadows danced around them, painting the walls with the fragments of their pasts. The air between them was thick with unspoken words, the kind that hung like heavy fog, waiting for just the right moment to part and reveal the truths they both feared. Lily rummaged through the boxes, pulling out remnants of lives once lived. Tattered photographs, dusty trinkets, remnants of laughter and tears. Each item seemed to resonate with an energy that drew her deeper into the story of the house, of its inhabitants, and somehow of her own past. As she sifted through the items, she felt Doctor's gaze resting upon her, a weight that both comforted and unnerved her. In those moments of silence, she felt a stirring within, an inexplicable bond forming between them that transcended mere circumstance. "I used to look at photographs like these when I was a child," Lily mused, holding up a faded portrait of a couple, their faces obscured by time, yet full of life in that captured moment. "They remind me of home, even if I don't quite remember what home feels like." Doctor's heart ached, with a mix of empathy and longing, each word she spoke pulling him deeper into her world, an unseen tether knitting their souls together. Doctor stepped closer, drawn by the melancholy that enveloped her. "Home can be a haunting place," he replied softly, his voice low, reflecting the weight of his own memories. But it can also be a refuge. He paused, searching her eyes for understanding. Sometimes, it's the connections we forge that define where we belong. In that moment, the flickering flames cast a warm glow around them, illuminating the intricate lines of grief that marked their pasts, yet also suggesting an uncharted possibility for their future. Lily looked up, the flickers of firelight dancing in her wide eyes, a storm of emotions brewing just beneath the surface. Do you ever wonder if our pasts are intertwined? The question hung in the air, heavy and expectant, and Doctor felt an electric charge, a visceral connection pulsating between them. For a fleeting second, the boundaries of their lives seemed to blur, the shadows of loss merging into a tapestry that hinted at something far greater than coincidence. Tentatively, Doctor knelt beside her, his hand brushing against hers as he reached for the photograph she held. The brief contact sent a shiver down her spine, igniting a warmth that felt both foreign and familiar. "Maybe," he whispered, "there's a reason we found each other." Their eyes locked, and in that moment the realization struck him. The girl with the burned records, the fever house, and the dismal spectre of solitude that had haunted his own life, all converging into this fragile connection that flickered like the last embers of a dying fire. "Lily," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "the family tree you found, my family tree, it holds secrets that may reveal more than we think." She leaned closer, captivated as hope and fear intertwined within her. "What if," he continued, "what if you're part of that tie, a lost branch waiting to be rediscovered?" The weight of words hung like a promise, a solemn vow, sparking an inner curiosity within her, igniting the desire to seek the truths buried beneath layers of both their histories. Without breaking his gaze, Lily cautiously placed the photograph back in the box, the moment feeling too sacred to disrupt. Instead, she reached for Doctor's hand, intertwining her fingers with his, the warmth of their touch, a silent agreement, a pledge to uncover the riddles of their pasts together. In that simple gesture, the silence of years spent apart faded, replaced by a burgeoning sense of belonging that filled the void they had both endured. As the storm outside raged, the flickering fire continued its dance, casting a cocoon of warmth around them, enveloping their intertwined hands in a glow that promised hope. Together, they sat in the dimly lit study, on the precipice of a journey that would lead them to rediscover not only their own identities, but the potential for a shared future, one forged from pain, yet illuminated by the possibility of connection. Lily sat on the edge of her bed, the sun's light filtering through the sheer curtains and painted gold across her skin. It was a strange comfort that did little to soothe the tempest within her. Each breath felt heavy, laden with the weight of guilt and confusion. Shadows of her past flickered through her mind, whispering secrets she had spent years trying to bury. Doctor had opened a door she thought was long shut, and now she wrestled with the implications of what it meant to uncover the truth about herself. The small, battered records that had once defined her were stacked in the corner of her room, a chaotic symphony of her history, marked by the burn of abandonment and loss. Now, those records felt like a map leading back to a place she was terrified to revisit. Doctor's kindness had chipped away at her defenses, revealing a vulnerability she hadn't known was still buried beneath the surface. But every moment spent in his presence brought forth a flicker of hope, twisting her heart into knots as she contemplated their shared connection. Lily stood up abruptly, frustration bubbling over as she paced the confines of the room. She could hear the echo of Doctor's voice, gentle yet firm, reminding her that understanding one's roots was fundamental to embracing the future. But what future could she claim when her past was filled with scars? The notion of her identity intertwining with Doctor's family tree hung like a heavy cloud, casting shadows over her spirit. How could she allow him to delve deeper when every layer uncovered could shatter the fragile bond they had built? The door creaked open and Doctor stepped in, his presence illuminating the dimness that had descended upon Lily's heart. He observed her with a mixture of concern and patience, sensing the turmoil roiling within her. "You don't have to go through this alone," he said softly, grounding her in the moment. But as his eyes searched her face for answers, a flurry of thoughts collided within her, shoving her into a corner of despair. She felt trapped between two halves of herself, the girl longing for connection and the survivor clinging to her solitude. "Sometimes, I wonder if I was meant to remain lost," she whispered, her voice trembling as the confession slipped into the air between them. The vulnerability of her words reverberated in the quiet room, and Doctor stepped closer, the space between them collapsing into something electric and fragile. "You were never meant to be lost, Lily. You're here now, and that's what matters," he reassured her, but his words felt like an avalanche crashing against her defenses. A raw edge of fear gnawed at her heart. What if uncovering the truth meant losing the one person who had shown her kindness? In that moment, the walls she had fortified around her heart quivered dangerously. Lily's eyes filled with unshed tears, blurring the world before her. The thought of pushing Doctor away, of retreating into the shadows of her past, became unbearable. Could she truly allow this man, who had opened so many doors, to discover the depths of her anguish? The irony twisted painfully. In seeking connection, she had found herself standing on the precipice of despair and hope. She knew he deserved the truth, yet the idea of revealing it felt like setting fire to a carefully constructed facade. "Doctor, Her voice faltered, the weight of her secrets crashing in, leaving her breathless. The truth clawed at her throat, a dam ready to burst. But before the words could escape, an image of those burned records flashed through her mind, each one a testament to resilience, yes, but also a reminder of her isolation. A battle raged within her. If she revealed her roots, what if she lost the very thing that felt like home? Just as the silence thickened, filled with unshared confessions and burgeoning fears, Doctor reached for her hand. The warmth of his grip sent a jolt through her, igniting a spark buried deep within. "Whatever you are holding back, I promise to stand by you." The sincerity in his voice wrapped around her heart like a lifeline. In that moment, she realized the truth had already been forged in their shared journey, a truth that could bind them together rather than tear them apart. Finally, tears spilled over as Lily freed the silent scream lodged in her chest. "I found something in your family tree, Doctor, and it shook the very foundation of who I thought I was." The words tumbled out, raw and unfiltered, a torrent of revelations about herself that had long been buried. The tension in the room shifted, electric and fragile, as Lily laid bare the fears that had held her captive for far too long, ready to face the truth and its consequences alongside the man who had already shown her the path toward healing. The rain drummed heavily against the window, a relentless symphony of anguish that echoed through the dimly lit hospital room. Doctor leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his mind drowning in a torrent of memories that collided with the present. Lily lay unconscious in the bed, her features softened by the flickering glow of the monitors, which hummed with the rhythm of life. The fever that had ravaged her body seemed to give way to a fragile peace, but Doctor could feel the weight of uncertainty pressing against his chest. He could hardly breathe, haunted by the knowledge of what her future might hold. As thunder rumbled in the distance, a sudden flash of lightning illuminated the room, casting fleeting shadows that danced across the sterile walls. In that moment, Doctor recalled the day he first met Lily, her spirit encased in the determination of a survivor, her laughter like a melody that cut through the fog of his grief. The burned records he had found in her possession were not just remnants of the past, they were pieces of her heart, fragments that mirrored his own shattered existence. A connection deeper than he had ever anticipated was forged in the fires of both their histories. The door creaked open, and the sound pulled Doctor from his reverie. He turned to see the geneticist from the hospital, an old friend and mentor, stepping in with a stack of forms clutched in her hands. "We need to discuss Lily's case," the scientist said, her voice steady but laced with concern. Doctor nodded, both grateful for the interruption and apprehensive about what was to come. They spoke in hushed tones as the storm swelled outside, their words swirling around with the crackle of electricity in the air. "Her blood work points to an anomaly," the geneticist finally said, her brow furrowed as she glanced at the monitors displaying Lily's vitals. "We need to dig deeper, Doctor. I believe there's something significant here, something that may tie her to your family." Each word landed like a hammer against Doctor's heart, and he recoiled. Memories of his late wife's family tree flickered in his mind, a tapestry woven with stories of loss and resilience. What could it possibly mean? He couldn't allow himself to hope. I don't follow," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. The geneticist opened a folder, revealing rough sketches of a family tree intertwined with details of historical lineage. "Look closely at these names," she urged, pointing to a lineage that he had never fully explored. As he studied the lines connecting his ancestors, a jolt of recognition surged through him. A name he had dismissed long ago, a name that had been whispered in the corners of family gatherings, a name that now echoed in both their lives. Thunder cracked overhead, and Doctor's pulse quickened, each beat resounding in his ears as he recalled a story from his childhood. A long-lost cousin, spoken of only in hushed tones, was rumored to have perished in a fire, leaving behind a daughter. Could it be? His heart raced as the pieces began to weave together, a tapestry of fate unraveling before his eyes. He felt a flood of emotions wash over him, anger, sorrow, joy, all mingling in a chaotic symphony. "Lily," he breathed, taking a step closer to the bed. In that moment, it wasn't just a patient before him, it was a part of his lineage, a lifeline forged from shared pain and history. The revelation that they were intertwined in ways neither of them had known struck him with an intensity that took his breath away. The fear of losing her became more than personal. It became a fight to reclaim not just her life, but a piece of his own heritage that had been buried in ash and memory. As he looked down at her, the storm outside raged on, but inside him, a fierce determination ignited. He grasped her hand, feeling the warmth still lingering beneath her fevered skin. "You are not alone," he whispered fervently. "Together we will mend what was lost, I promise." It was a pledge forged in shared suffering and newfound hope, and he felt a connection to her that transcended mere circumstance. They were now bound not only by fate's cruel hand, but by blood, an unbreakable thread that tied their souls together. The monitors beeped steadily, mirroring the rhythm of his heart as he vowed to uncover the truth, to fight not just for Lily, but for all the buried stories that demanded to rise from the ashes. The storm outside began to wane, softening into a gentle patter against the glass, as if the world outside was mirroring the dawning light within him. In the midst of despair, he found purpose, a renewed sense of belonging, a family he thought he had lost forever, standing resilient in the face of adversity. Lily stood at the edge of the forest, the fading sun draping the world in hues of amber and rose. The air was thick with the scent of pine and wildflowers, an echo of life persevering against the shadows of loss. Dr. No, a quiet sentinel beside her, breathed deeply, the weight of unspoken histories lingering between them like a gentle fog. With a trembling hand, Lily reached down, brushing her fingers over the wild blooms that sprouted defiantly from the cracked earth. Each petal whispered stories of resilience, mirroring her own journey from fevered past to the light of newfound kinship. Dr. No watched, his heart a silent symphony, resonating with the fragile beauty of the moment. As if reading each other's thoughts, they turned towards the vastness of the forest, where the trees swayed like ancient guardians, their leaves rustling a soft reassurance. A gentle breeze stirred, carrying with it the laughter of the past and the promise of healing. Lily took a step forward, each footfall a vow of remembrance and rebirth. Doctor, No reached for her hand, their fingers intertwining, a silent agreement that they would journey together through the shadows into the light, where family and love awaited.